Well, hello and welcome to Wooden Watch to Need, and today I am going to tell you how I use the slide rule bezel on a watch like this. This is my only watch for now with a slide rule bezel, and it's the Timex Expedition that I have reviewed in a video that I will link in the description below. The outer bezel looks a bit loose, and that's because when I was trying to clean it, I lost a kind of rubber gasket that it had inside. It simply broke. So now it's turning more loosely, but the operations for which I use the slide rule bezel are not multiplications or divisions. For those, I try to use a calculator if I have it handy. And I am reasonably good at calculating percentages in my head if they're easy to do. But conversions, I use it for conversions. So miles into kilometers and vice versa, pounds into kilograms and vice versa. And then I'm going to tell you at the end of the video, probably the most complicated one that I do, and it's converting degrees Fahrenheit into Celsius and vice versa. But let's start with the easy one, and it's miles and kilometers. Now, of course, the slide rule bezel has a logarithmic scale, and I'm not able to explain to you what that means. For that, it's not linear scale, it's logarithmic. There are numbers on the outer bezel and there are numbers on the inner bezel. So to convert miles into kilometers and vice versa, we have to know that 1 kilometer is approximately 0.62 miles. So what I do is I align 10 here in the inner bezel with 62 approximately on the outer bezel. I will have miles on the outer bezel and kilometers on the inner bezel. Let's try to verify the truth of what I am saying. If I go here on the outer bezel, it's the number 10. I know that 10 miles is approximately 16 kilometers, and this matches what I find on the slide rule bezels. Let's say I want to know what 5 miles corresponds in kilometers. It's a bit more than 8 kilometers. Let's say I want to know what 19 miles is in kilometers. It's roughly 30 kilometers, and so on and so forth. 30 miles is approximately less than 50, more than 45 kilometers. So what is it? 48 kilometers or something like that. And
if you have to work with smaller numbers, such as, for example, 4.5 miles, it'll be about 7 point something kilometers. Less than 8 kilometers, but more than 7, okay?
That is the first conversion that we can do, and it's the easiest one. Just once again, align your 10 here in the inner bezel with 62 approximately on the outer bezel, and you will find kilometers in the inner bezel and miles in the outer bezel. Let's make another conversion now. Let's say I want to transform kilograms and pounds and vice versa. I know that the ratio between kilograms and pounds is 1/2.2 roughly. So I take my red arrow here, which is my 0 value, and I put right over the 22 here, and then I check my ratios. So if I have 4 kilograms, for example, here on the outer bezel, it will correspond to approximately 9 pounds. And this is correct because it's a bit more than twice. Okay, so 4 kilograms multiplied by 2 is 8, but it's a bit more, so it's almost 9. Whereas if I have 80 kilograms, for example, so here 80 on the outer bezel, I will have a number between 170 and 180 pounds, let's say 175 pounds. If I want to make the reverse calculation, say how many kilograms is in 50 pounds, well, in 50 pounds is roughly 23 kilograms. How many kilograms are in 10 pounds? In 10 pounds are roughly 4.5 kilograms. How many kilograms are in, let's take a less wrong number, in 17 pounds? Well, it's something between 7.5 and 8 kilos. So 7.7 kilos, and that is 17 pounds. and so on and so forth. But let's get now to the most complicated conversions that I actually use, and that is the one converting from Fahrenheit to Celsius degrees and vice versa. Now, in order to do this, we have to know that the ratio between Fahrenheit and Celsius is 5/9. So I take my outer bezel and I put my 5 or 50 over the number 9. Now, this is not everything that there is to it, because there's also a subtraction to be made, and it's 32. So let's take one first example. I want to know how many degrees Celsius are in 78 degrees Fahrenheit. So I take my 78 degrees Fahrenheit and I subtract 32, and I'm left with 46. Now I look for my 46 here on the inner bezel. 46 is right after 45, of course, and this will give me about 26-ish degrees Celsius. So when it's 78 degrees Fahrenheit, I know that it's approximately 26 degrees Celsius. Let's take a colder temperature. If it's 54 degrees Fahrenheit, what do I have to do? Well, first of all, I have to subtract 32, and I will find 22. I look for my 22 here on the inner bezel, and 22 on the inner bezel is here. So my 22 will correspond to something between 12 and 13 degrees Celsius, 12.2 degrees Celsius. Now things get interesting here when we go to lower temperatures. Let's say that I want to know how many degrees Celsius correspond to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I have to take 40 and subtract 32. I am left with 8. I look for 8 here on my inner bezel, and I will find that it's a very cold temperature, which is about less than 4.5 degrees Celsius. And if the temperature gets lower, let's say that I have 36 Fahrenheit, I have to take my 36, subtract 32, and I'm left with 4. I look for my number 4 here and see that the precision becomes higher. So when it's 36 degrees Fahrenheit, my Celsius temperature will be between 2.2 and 2.3 Celsius. And if I want to do the reverse, I simply take my Celsius value on the outer bezel. Let's say it's 45 degrees Celsius, and I want to know what that corresponds in Fahrenheit. I read here, and it's a bit more than 8, let's say 8.2, so 82, and I also have to add 32, so it will be 114 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's fairly hot, it's almost unlivable. 45 degrees Celsius is 114 Fahrenheit. Whereas if it were 4.5 degrees Celsius, so much colder, I would be left with 8.2, but then I have to add 32, so it would make 40 point something degrees Fahrenheit, corresponding to 4.5 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that's it. I will write in the editing process more precise data somewhere on the screen, so my values with decimals. I don't use my slide rule bezel for anything else, and when I use the slide rule bezel for conversions, it's only to play with my watch, to have an excuse to play with a watch that has this. Okay, I've never had any real or concrete need to use the slide rule bezel, but this could also serve me as an excuse to buy a watch with a more precise and less wobbly slide rule bezel, because any excuse is good to buy a new watch that I don't need. I hope I made sense with what I tried to convey to you, and I'm not saying explain, because this was not really an explanation. If you have any doubts, please write them in the comments, and I 90% sure that I won't be able to explain myself better, but I will try. This I guarantee. Yeah, I'll see you on the next of Wouldn't What You Don't Need. Ciao.